for old-fashioned recipes and your gardening needs, while sipping on Kentucky bourbon. You sit right back in your big red hat, we're taking rural back from the urban. Listen to the stories with Kentucky proud, share the giggles with all of your friends. You all are tuned in to Friends Drifting.
Hey, welcome to Friends Drift In, your local source for the farm-to-table movement in Eastern Kentucky. This is the May episode. May is one of my favorite months. We start with the Kentucky Derby, we move on to Mother's Day, we have graduations, Memorial Day at the end of the month, and through all of those celebrations, we have a lot of house guests. So today I'm starting with a brunch recipe. We're going to be doing carrot soup, asparagus quiche, and then we're going to top it off with Miss Ellen Donahue's Dandy Cookies. When we talk about the farm-to-table movement, we talk about fresh ingredients. One of the most exciting new products in Kentucky is sheep cheese from Good Shepherd Cheese in Bath County. It's from Colleen and Sanford Dotson. They're from up at Phelps originally, and now they're milking sheep. I got to spend about 6 to 8 hours with them, doing everything from milking the sheep to making the cheese, and it was an exciting time. I hope that you'll get to hear more about that a little later. Before you got here, I started the carrot soup. Carrots. Pretty lowly stuff, grows in the ground. Right this time of year, there's still not a lot from the garden. So what we do is we try to eat seasonally. And so to start with the carrot soup, what you do is you slice the carrots kind of thin. And then you add some onions. And you put them in a Dutch oven. Now this is my Dutch oven back here. Now what I did before you got here was I had chopped some onions and carrots and started them on the back with just a little bit of butter, wilted them down, and added some chicken broth. Now in real life you really should make your own chicken broth, but I didn't. But what I do use is I do use an organic chicken broth. And what that means is that the chickens have not been fed anything that is a growth enhancer, or that they have not been exposed to a lot of pesticides in the farm. I think that's very important. So I've got that simmering on the back. And then our next step will be to move along with the quiche. The first thing we'll do is we'll roll out the dough. I wish I could tell you that I was a good pie dough maker. My grandma made some of the best pie dough in the world, and she used vinegar. And I'm still trying to figure out how to make pie dough work. So maybe by Christmas, when we do our Christmas episode, I'll have some really great pie dough recipe for you. So what I've done is I've bought a pre-done pie dough. And we kind of roll this out. Now, it never suits me the way it is. I like to get it a little bit bigger, so I've got some room to work. Let's kind of move that around a little bit. And I like using these little flippy things. These plastic flippy things are so easy to work with. You just flip that right over and kind of pat your dough down. Now you don't want to overwork it because it'll get tough. And you don't want to make it any tears because then it'll go into the dish. After we get it kind of set in there, you take some kitchen shears and just trim around. Now if I was doing this to travel, going to a bruncheon at one of my friends, I would probably just take a fork and round this edge of the pie crust with the fork and just kind of flat it out. You all know what I'm talking about. But I'm not traveling today. I'm here at the house. And this is a job that my mama used to make me do when I was a kid. And that is flute the pie shell. And what you do is you just stick one finger in and you take your, this finger goes this way, these fingers go this way, and you just start fluting around the edges. Doesn't take very long. And so even if you've cheated and used a store-bought pie crust, it looks like that you really went to a lot of trouble. And it's no trouble at all. It's just as simple as this. Your kids could do this. And again, when my grandma and my mama were making lots of pies, when there was big parties, this was my job, was just to go around and flute the pie crust. Now after we get this fluted, there we go, you want to take a fork, and they call this docking. And what you do is you just kind of go in here and you poke some holes. And what that does is that'll allow the steam to escape so you don't get it all poofed up. Now some people, when they're doing quiches, they don't go to this bother, but it's the way I always do it, and I think your crust comes out much crisper. Now if you were high budget, you would have pie weights. Me, I'm low budget. I'm using pinto beans. I have some that I use just for baking. You can't eat these after you bake them, but you just use them as a pie weight, and that keeps the bottom of the crust level. And what you do is you bake this off for about 10 minutes at about 325. So I'm going to stick this in the oven. And miraculously, it comes out looking like this. Amazing! Next, we're going to cut up, what we would do is we would cut up asparagus. And I want to talk to you a little bit about asparagus. Asparagus is very seasonal. Did you know that Kentucky is the capital of asparagus production up in Maize Lick, which is in Mason County? We are floundering a little bit here in America with our asparagus production. We're down by about 25%. And the reason for that is because that we're using more imports. So buy American and buy Kentucky asparagus. It's only in season from May and June, and it's something really special. So what I've done is I've covered up my workspace, which I shouldn't have done. But the first thing you do for this quiche is, and you can't see it, you can't see me, can you? There. I'm going to take the tips and just slice them off. And then I'm going to put them in a little bowl with some chopped up onions. And I am going to put them on a baking dish. I'm going to cook these at 425 for about 15 minutes. Now I'm going to add a little bit of salt and my favorite product, cold pressed olive oil. Just a little bit of olive oil on there. And we're going to put those in the oven. 15 minutes. Now while those are cooking, I've started the batter for the quiche. Now if you are gluten-free, you really don't have to use the crust. You could just do a crustless quiche, which is very trendy right now. You wouldn't have to go to all this trouble of browning the crust off. But what I've got, you should always break your eggs into a separate bowl. Do as I say, not as I do. 6 eggs, 1/4 cup of heavy cream, 1/4 cup of yogurt, 1/2 cup of Good Shepherd sheep cheese. Yes, sheep cheese. It's very mild, has a real fresh taste, kind of herby. And I guess, you know, if you think of sheep out in the field and they're grazing, you would understand why you're getting that herbaceous. And then a little bit of onion. And what you do is you take a whisk and you whisk this puppy up. Now I like to whip it a little bit more than just to get it blended. I like to get a little bit of air in there. And then we'll set that aside. We're going to cook this down. And that'll take about, 4 or 5 minutes. When you're cooking asparagus, you want to cook it on the top of the stove with a little bit of butter, a little bit of onions. And all I've done is I've kind of got it just so it's softened a little bit. It should be a really bright green. And after we get that softened, we're going to add this asparagus right, and I bet you can't see that. There it is. And we're going to add that right to the plate. I'm going to kind of smooth that out. Now, asparagus is a perennial vegetable, and what that means is that you plant it once and it will grow for 15 years. So you think about that investment if you make a permanent asparagus bed. You know, $15 for a few little crowns, put them in the ground, you've got it for 15 years as long as their feet don't get wet. It's an amazing thing. You're saving money and you're definitely getting a fresh Kentucky product. Now we take the egg custard that I've already whipped up. I'm going to whip it just a little bit more. And we're going to add that in. Okay. And then, you know, it looks kind of plain. So let's get down here in my noisy oven and get some of those asparagus that we have roasted off. I'm just going to kind of play with them, just plop them around in here. Good. And because that I like to overindulge, just a little bit more sheep cheese across the top. And I'm going to bake this in the oven at 375 for about 25 to 30 minutes. Now when I'm ready to take it out, the center, that's what you really want to focus on, is the center. The center will start to solidify. You don't want it jelly and shaky, that's nasty. You want to get it perfectly done. So anywhere between 25 and 30 minutes at a 375 degree oven. Now while we've got that cooking off, we're going to go check on my carrot soup. Now what that had in it was butter. We had some chopped onion. We had garlic. You can grow garlic yourself. Order it in the fall. You can do a permanent bed in there with your asparagus. It's going to save you money. It's going to be fresh. If you can't grow, if you're a city dweller and don't have enough room to do a little bit of garlic, look for Blue Moon garlic. It's made in Lexington, grown in Lexington. It's some of the best that you can get. And instead of with the garlic, I've also chopped up some russet red potatoes. Now these are baking potatoes. So unlike a Yukon Gold, which is very soft, this will hold up and not get so mushy. The other ingredient I had was orange juice and oranges. You know I'm all about local. Obviously we don't grow oranges in Pike County. But what I want to tell you about these oranges is this is an organic orange, and it'll say right on it, Valencia Organic. This one is particularly from California. I'd rather buy California than from Spain or someplace else. And the reason that I buy organic oranges is if I'm going to do a zest, which I'm going to do here in a minute, which is where you take this and you use the peel for a flavoring. If it's organic, it doesn't have pesticides on it. And if I'm going to be eating zest, I sure don't want extra pesticides in there. You pay extra for that. Don't do it. Get the organic. So as we've started, I don't like kitchen appliances. Charlie will tell you I will not use the KitchenAid. I will not use the food processor. But this is the bomb. This is called an emulsion blender. Emerald calls it a boat motor. If you live up near Fish Trap, you know what a boat motor looks like. I love it. It's just got a little bitty blade on it. You turn this puppy on and plunge it in here. And it'll make a mess, and sometimes I wear goggles. Don't laugh at me, I do. But I just try to use it and get it smooth, and it just keeps going. Takes a little bit to get this whole thing done, but you get the idea. And your final picture, your final product, when we finish, it will be smooth. Am I covered? I'm giving you my carrot smile. Your final product will be smooth like this. You just a very thin soup, and you can serve this either hot. I like it chilled, and that's what we're going to do today. So as we get ready for Mother's Day, you know, we're going to take our quiche out of the oven. 20 minutes. And this is one of my favorites. This is how it looks. And then we want to plate it up for Mom. So this is how I'm going to present it today. Cut a bite of this. This usually, now I'm cutting it fresh out of the oven, so it's not going to cut quite as pretty. Really, you should let it cool anywhere from 20 minutes to up to 4 hours. I do not like to make these ahead of time and put in the refrigerator because it gets kind of liquidy. And my crust is going to break, but that's all right. So we're going to put on a little bit of the quiche. And then what's very, very trendy, shooters. Cold carrot soup in a little shooter glass. And I'm going to garnish that. It's got just a little bit of orange juice in it. And I'm going to garnish it. This is called a microplane, and I'm going to garnish it with just a little bit of orange across the plate. Because Mom is special. She deserves a little bit of that. And then I'm going to stick a little bit of this in here. This fall, I spent some time with the Appalachia brothers. They're big hotshot chefs from Maryland. One of their biggest pieces of advice that they gave me was use everything. So when we buy carrots, a lot of times we just throw the greens away. Nah, the Appalachia brothers wouldn't do that. So we're just going to add a little carrot top in there. Now if you've got kids, kids will love this little shooter thing. So we've got the quiche and we've got the shooter, and then on my website you'll find the recipe for Miss Ellen Donahue's cookies. I will tell you that these little cookies, they don't look like much, They were the star of the women's club meeting. Every time we have a tea, everybody wants Miss Ellen's cookies. So I'm going to plate it upside down. I'm going to take just a little bit of this sheep cheese. See how creamy? Can you see how creamy it is? So creamy. Oh, it tastes so good. I love sheep cheese. I'm going to break it in half. I'm going to put a little bit of this sheep cheese. Now, y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but I really don't care. I think I kind of have a reputation anyway. Taking a little bit of my homemade blackberry jam, and I'm going to put it on that sheep cheese. Sheep cheese is considered a dessert cheese, and it's very sweet. And so when they end it, when the sheep herders were in the field, this is how they would end their day, with a very sweet dessert, a lot of fresh fruits and blackberry jam. So here we are. We're going to try this asparagus quiche. Fresh asparagus, fresh organic eggs. Creamy, very rich. Got that cheese in the background. Getting the contrast of the asparagus. I'm going to do a little shooter. Cold carrot soup. Just do it. And to finish the meal, Miss Ellen Donahue's cookie with sheep cheese and homemade blackberry jam. You know your mama's going to love you when you do this for Mother's Day brunch. I'm Joyce Pinson. This has been Friends Drift In. Catch you in another month. Share the giggles.